Welcome back, folks, to another buzzing episode of Infinite Podcast. Now, Simon, have you ever thought about how bees are such efficiency freaks? Queen, workers, drones, everyone's got a job and they nail it. It's like the ultimate assembly line that never quits. Makes me wonder if our corporate overlords could learn a trick or two from them. What do you think, man? Could we turn our offices into Hive-like productivity powerhouses, or is that just a fantasy?
Ha, Joe, you want to turn the office into a hive? Last thing I need is my boss thinking he's the queen bee. But seriously, humans aren't built for that kind of rigid structure. We're more creatively chaotic, you know? Chuck a coffee break into a bee's schedule and watch that efficiency crumble.
You're not wrong, Simon. Humans do thrive on some chaos and a good coffee break. But think about it. Isn't there something to be said about everyone knowing their role? Not the whole queen bee scenario, of course. More like clear-cut responsibilities can sometimes get us moving more smoothly, minus the antennas and wings. Creativity needs structure to become productive, right?
Nah, I disagree, Joe. Too much structure smothers creativity. You ever see a bee painting a masterpiece? No way. They're stuck doing the same task. Humans thrive on mixing it up, flipping roles. That flexibility, that's our secret sauce. Keep your antenna. I'll take my coffee breaks and messy desk any day.
Okay, Simon, I get your point about flexibility, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here. The bees have efficiency down to an art form. We don't need to replicate it entirely, but a dash of their discipline could spice up our productivity stew. Imagine teams where everyone is clear about what they're buzzing around for. You'd have less time wasted and more honey made. Not literally, but you catch my drift.
Well, if we're going to take a page from the bee playbook, let's not forget those drones get kicked out after they're done with their one job. That's one heck of a pink slip. Imagine walking into work. Hey, good job on that one thing. Now please leave the building and never come back. Talk about workers' rights, eh?
Harsh but fair. Worker rights are essential, and bees do run a tight ship. Too tight for humans, perhaps. Our strength comes from adaptability, not just efficiency without empathy. Craft that into company culture. Learn from the bee's focus, but keep our human touch. Balance is key. We're not building hives. We're building businesses with people at the center, not drones programmed to get kicked to the curb.
So, Joe, how would you balance that bee-like focus with our need for human empathy in the workplace? You've got any clever ways to merge the two without turning us into office drones?
You know, Simon, this reminds me of my early days at a startup. We tried to nail that balance. Every morning we'd kick off with a hive huddle, clear on our tasks like bees, but we also shared personal wins or struggles. It built a bond in the team. We were zoned in on our own pollen patches, but always had each other's backs. That hybrid approach, where focus met open ears, it worked wonders. We maintained our humanity while being productive as heck. Turned out you can buzz and be empathetic too.
A hive huddle, eh? Like a morning pick-me-up with a side of feelings. I can dig it, as long as there's no group hug involved. Just don't make me share my diary, Joe.
Group hug? Not a chance, Simon. We're not that kind of show. But the hive huddle isn't about airing your diary. It's about gearing up the team. Think of it as a pit stop for high-octane racers. Quick check-in, then vroom, back to winning. What if, just what if, you could cut meeting times in half with this and still crush productivity goals? More time for racing, or, those precious coffee breaks.
Oh no, Joe, I'm not falling for it. If we start with facts and details like how bees communicate with dances, imagine that in the office. Meetings would turn into a full-blown Broadway show. Keep the hive huddle short and sweet. Would save us from those endless meetings where Dave retells his fish tales. Efficient and to the point. Now that's something I'd buzz about.
Hey, new listeners, you've just dived into our hive of conversation here on Infinite Podcast. I'm Joe, and together with Simon, we've been buzzing about how the amazing world of bees might inspire human productivity. We're talking strict roles, hive huddles, and whether we should dance our communications like those busy bees, minus the Broadway show vibe. No group hugs promised. Stick with us. It's getting sweeter by the minute.
You bet, Joe. It's fascinating, Bees really do got their act together. Every bee knows its role. No bee is trying to be the next Bezos or anything. But humans, we've got ambitions, dreams. We want variety in our work, honey. Embrace that flexibility and human spirit. Then maybe you get an office that's buzzing with efficiency and innovation. Keep those dreams alive, folks. Don't settle for just making honey.
True, bees aren't shooting for the moon, or Mars, if we're talking Bezos style. But Simon, isn't there a thin line between a dream-chasing thrill and a chaotic free-for-all? Sure, nobody wants a monotonous grind, but a pinch of bee-level discipline could be the foundation on which to build those skyscraper dreams. Achieving efficiency without stifling the human spirit, that's the sweet spot we should aim for. And speaking of dreaming big, let's pivot a bit. If you were king bee for a day, what would your first order be to boost both efficiency and morale in our hive here at the Infinite Podcast? Give us the buzz.
King bee, huh? Well, Joe, I'd flip the hive on its head. None of that everyone stick to your role stuff. Say day one, everyone swaps tasks. The queen's out doing the pollen run, workers are laying out strategies. Buzzword bingo, anyone? By seeing how tough each job is, our respect for one another skyrockets. That boosts morale better than any peppy Monday meeting could. Keep it unpredictable. Keep it fun. That's where true efficiency blossoms. Predictable is boring. Chaos keeps us sharp.
Interesting take, Simon. Flipping roles to foster respect, huh? So if unpredictability is the name of your game, how would you ensure that this kind of controlled chaos doesn't spiral into actual chaos? Where's the line drawn between fun mayhem and a productivity nosedive?
Total chaos is a recipe for disaster, Joe. No arguments here. It's like juggling chainsaws, fun to watch until someone loses an arm. So, okay, in this controlled chaos scenario, we keep the essence of everyone's strengths in play. You might mix it up, but never toss people into roles they're just not cut out for. Dave in accounting with his fear of numbers? Disaster waiting to happen. It's about balance. Shake things up just enough to keep the energy high and the limbs intact.
Hive mind insights, really? Fascinating concept for us to chew on. Speaking of bees, Simon, did you have a chance to read about how bees' societal structure plays out? I stumbled across this the other day. It's genius. Each bee has a precise role that contributes to the hive's success. No second guessing, no office politics. Could you imagine if teams worked like that? You'd have a clear line on who does what, and collaboration would be off the charts. Efficiency at its best. But hey, let's not forget to throw in some humanity there.
Isn't it wild, Joe? The bees really have their act together with that role definition. Still, imagine how stiff that'd be at the office. Zero room for creativity when you're already boxed in. Sure, clear roles can ramp up efficiency, but let's not lose our human spark. Imagine blending that hive mindset with a dash of good old human ingenuity. Now that could lead to some sweet results, don't you think? What's your take on keeping the creativity buzzing?
Absolutely. Their role clarity with a human twist could be golden. Pivoting slightly, but sticking to our buzzing friends, there's something deeper to this efficiency of theirs. It's like bees tap into an inherent wisdom in nature, making decisions that benefit the whole hive. Philosophers often wonder about collective intelligence versus individual smarts. With bees, it's almost like they've figured out the perfect balance between intuition and reason, something we humans are still wrestling with. What do you think about learning from our striped friends on this one?
Well, I'm all for wisdom, Joe, but let's not get carried away attributing our human traits to bees. They're sharp, no doubt, but is it wisdom or just killer instinct? They've got that hive mind thing down, sure. But hey, collective smarts versus solo brain power, humans can't seem to pick a lane. Bees don't sit around philosophizing. They're too busy being efficient. Maybe the real lesson here is just do the work and quit overthinking it. Could save us from a few existential crises, don't you think?
Simon, you drive home a valid point. The romanticizing of bee behavior is easy, but we might be reading too much into their actions. Classic human move. They act largely on instinct, which isn't quite wisdom, it's survival. Their efficiency is enviable, though. Now, if only we could extract that essence and apply it, minus the overthinking, humans could streamline our endless debates and get right to sustainable action. That's some innate intuition I'd vote for. Rather than an existential crisis, how about an existential solution?
Ah, Joe, but here's the rub. What if their so-called intuition isn't all that? Imagine us trying to copy bees and ending up just bumbling along. Frankly, our overthinking sometimes saves us from jumping into the deep end without a life vest. Wisdom isn't just about instinct, it's about learning from past goofs. Bees don't fret about history, they're too busy living in the now. Us? We need that sweet spot between bee-like instinct and human reflection. Less existential crisis, more like smart existential planning.
They really just live in the buzz of now. Makes me think if bees did history lessons, I guess every class would start with, "So back to the last flower." But you're spot on about balancing instinct with reflection. We humans have a knack for complicating things, but maybe that's because our hive is a bit larger and, let's face it, messier than the bees. Now, if we can manage not to bumble too much, we might just find our way to a smarter, more reflective buzz of existence.
You think then, Joe, that our messier human hive is what gives us the edge, even if it leads to a few more stumbles along the way?
Yeah, Simon, 100%. The mess and stumbles are kind of what make us human. It's like when you're training in jiu-jitsu, you get tapped out a bunch, but that's how you learn and get better. Our messy hive isn't just about screw-ups, it's about growth, adaptation. Bees are dope with their efficiency, but they're not rolling with the punches, trying new moves. We are, and that's the edge right there. That edge is grit, innovation, creativity, the total human experience, man.
Joe, I'm just imagining a bee trying to submit another for stealing honey like some kind of eight-legged jujitsu master. It's like, buzz off, Chad. That pollen is mine. But seriously, it's about taking those stingers and turning them into learning moments. Bees keep their hives tight. We turn our mess into a dojo. Every time life chokes us out, we tap and then come back for more. That's the human way, getting better one bruise at a time.
I hear you on the learning moments, but it's not like bees never adapt. Consider this. When resources are scarce, bees don't just carry on business as usual. They scout, they strategize, adjust their game. Sure, we translate our stingers into lessons, but maybe that innate bee hustle is a form of wisdom we overlook because it's not wrapped up in a philosophy book. They're making moves without tediously analyzing every possible outcome. Could be a lesson there in trusting your gut and taking action.
Okay, Joe, you've got a point. I give props to the bees for being slick with their survival tactics. It's like they're all about that hustle without overcomplicating things. Maybe that's their brand of smarts. Wisdom doesn't always have to be deep thoughts and musings. They're just in sync with nature's rhythm, while we're out here trying to find the beat. So yeah, perhaps there's merit in keeping it simple and not overcooking the sauce. Just trust in your instincts and adapt on the fly.
Absolutely, Simon. Their streamlined hustle does have an elegance to it, uncomplicated but efficient. Trusting the instinct and adapting might be where their true smarts shine. Guess it's not just be smart, it's be smart. Now, if we consider that, I can't help but wonder what other natural wisdom nuggets are out there, quietly doing their thing while we go about our lives. There's always more buzzing beneath the surface than we realize.
Talking about natural wisdom got me thinking, Joe. You've seen how bees are portrayed in movies and books, right? Bee Movie kind of turns the hive into a parody of our human rat race. And then there's The Secret Life of Bees, where the beehive symbolizes community and connection. Bees practically wear little suits and carry briefcases in pop culture, reflecting our own social madness. We twist them into these metaphors for us, because at the end of the day, it's like we're all part of this giant cosmic beehive, aren't we?
For sure, the hive as a metaphor is pretty spot on. But let's flip this. These portrayals, especially ones that humanize bees to the max, do you think maybe they skew our perception of real bees? I mean, we've talked about bee instinct versus our complex social structures. When we see bees through this pop culture lens, packed with human traits, might we be missing out on appreciating them for what they truly are in nature?
Definitely. But Joe, do you think this anthropomorphizing could actually help us care more about bees because we relate to them? Or is it just muddying the waters?
I'm leaning towards muddying the waters, Simon. Giving bees a human persona in media could backfire. It paints an inaccurate picture of their world, which is not about individuality or personal dreams. It's about the collective. When we make them out to be just like us, we might start thinking they can handle environmental problems like we do, with adaptability and technology. But that's far from reality. They need a specific set of conditions to thrive that don't include briefcases or lawsuits.
Well, Joe, I'd play devil's advocate here. While I get that humanizing bees might oversimplify their needs, putting a relatable face on them can spark interest and empathy among people who wouldn't normally give two hoots about insects. It's like when a superhero movie ignites passion for science in kids. If seeing a bee with a briefcase gets someone to think twice before swatting or using pesticides, maybe it's worth the creative liberty. The end could justify the means if it leads to more bee-friendly gardens, right?
I hear what you're saying, and I'm all for bee-friendly gardens. But when the fiction gets too far from fact, there's a problem. If we believe bees operate like us, with individual choices and plans, we might not grasp their ecological role fully or the urgency behind their conservation. Remember the bee superhero? They need the right habitat, not a cape. The buzz should be about saving real bees, not just loving our fictional versions of them.
Well, Joe, mind blown here. I never connected those dots between bees in movies like Bee Movie and our human world. They really do cram them into tiny office cubicles with wings, don't they? It's kind of wacky when you think about how these stories can warp our view of bees. Like, imagine believing bees have job interviews or get promotions. So what if all this fiction is actually fuzzing up the real deal about bees? Could we be mixing up saving the bees with just loving a cartoonish version of them? Wild times, man. Wild times.
You nailed it, Simon. It's like we've put bees into a suit and tie so often that the line blurs between respecting them as crucial environmental players and chuckling at the thought of them holding board meetings. This goofball representation might make us care on a superficial level. But then I wonder, do people actually move beyond the laughs to understand real bees with their not-so-cartoonish crises? There's this gap. People loving Bee Movie, but then being indifferent to habitat loss or colony collapse disorder. Saving bees isn't glamorous. It doesn't always fit the fun narrative. We've got to bridge that gap between fiction and action.
Totally, Joe. There's this huge chasm between our cartoon bees zipping around in tiny cars and the harrowing reality of colony collapse. Just think about the kiddos who grow up loving these fun fictional bees. They don't see the real bees vanishing or losing their wildflower fields. The stories are entertaining, but they aren't telling kids, hey, planting flowers helps real bees. We need to bridge that gap from fiction to actual bee action. It's like telling superhero fans that capes don't make you fly. What makes you fly is understanding and protecting those little buzzing wonders in the backyard.
Right on, Simon. The real superpower we need to teach is stewardship of nature. Stories catch attention. Now it's time for the true tale of conservation to take center stage. That's the sequel worth watching and acting on.
Couldn't agree more, Joe. Imagine the ratings for Real Bee Heroes, Earth's Tiniest Conservationists. Now that's some buzzworthy reality TV I'd binge watch any day.
That's a series I'd tune into. So Simon, do you think a reality show, or maybe even a documentary that spotlights the daily life and importance of real bees, could actually raise awareness and drive change better than these anthropomorphic tales?
For sure, Joe. If we could make the real lives of bees as compelling as these fictional stories, it might just flip the script. Watching them work could spark an interest that leads to greater action. And who knows, maybe then people would give bees the respect they deserve without needing them to talk. So what's next on our buzz list?
Absolutely, Simon. And speaking of real bee action and respect, let's hone in on one of the biggest mysteries baffling scientists and leading to some serious bee talk: colony collapse disorder. You've probably heard about it, bees ditching their hives, queen and all. It looks like something out of a bee horror movie, but unfortunately, it's very real. So, what's causing these critical pollinators to vanish, and what can we do to help?
Colony collapse disorder is like this ultimate whodunit in the insect world. Bees are literally ghosting their homes, Joe. I mean, could you imagine coming home and your whole family just poof, vanished? And it ain't for lack of mystery. Suspects range from killer pesticides to nasty mites, even bee stress. It's huge. These bees bring us 1/3 of our food. Without them, we're looking at a world where avocados become black market goods. We gotta get CSI on this. Conservation Scene Investigation. Let's find the clues and solve this for good.
CSI bees, I like that. The ecological toll is no joke. Pesticides are my top suspect. They're messing with the bees' GPS and immune systems. Time to amp up research and dial down those chemicals.
But hey, let's not put all our honey in one jar here, Joe. Pesticides sure are bee bad news, but what about the other culprits? We've got viruses partying like it's 1999 in those hives, and mites draining bee juice like mini vampires. Then there's the high-rise monocultures stripping out the bees' buffet of wildflowers. Ditching pesticides is one piece of the puzzle, but man, we gotta hustle on improving their whole neighborhood. It's a beetropolis that needs renovating.
Absolutely, the beetropolis is in serious need of an overhaul. You're spot on about those vampiric mites and monocultures. So Simon, if it's that complex, where do you think we should start? What's step one in our conservation scene investigation to ensure these bees' buffet isn't just a sad salad bar of the same old crops?
Oh, Joe, step one is to hit the books, or I guess for us, the web. We've got to buzz through the science. Check this. Bees need a patchwork quilt of plants, but what they get is one giant mono blanket of crops, no good for their diet or immune system. And while we're at it, let's not forget about wild bees. These guys don't live in hives, but are epic pollinators too. They're dropping like flies, no pun intended. So diversify the menu for both honeybees and their wild cousins. Now, sustainability's the name of the game, right? Varied crops, fewer pesticides, maybe even rotation between natural habitats and farmland could give bees a break, like interspersing chapters of our CSI bees with some lighthearted commercials. Lastly, let's flip the script on urban spaces. More rooftop gardens and city parks could be mini havens for our buzzy friends. Wrapping up step one, educate and innovate. It's a two-pronged approach. Raise awareness and transform our practices from ground up, literally.
Hitting the books is just scratching the surface. Indeed, education is key, but paired with hands-on innovation, it's even more powerful. Like supporting local farms practicing sustainable agriculture, big win for bees. And our city dwellers can get in on it too. Urban beekeeping's becoming a thing. Plus, diverse plant life isn't just pretty, it's bee buffet deluxe. So Simon, imagine sleek skyscrapers with buzzing rooftops, a concrete jungle turning into a bee paradise. It's not only about bringing nature back to urban life, but also making cities part of the solution for CCD. Now, that's a season finale worth working towards in our CSI Bees episode.
You've got to give credit where it's due. Urban beekeeping's trendy, but let's dial it back a notch. Picture this, a swarm of newbie beekeepers in Brooklyn with more love than sense. It's chaos. Who's going to ensure these city slickers know the difference between a bee brush and a hairbrush? Education is prime time. Plus, transforming skyscrapers into pollinator penthouses is cool and all. But what about zoning laws, pests, or even scared of bee lawsuits? And here's the kicker. Urban environments could end up as bee traps if we're not careful. Let's get this right so we don't swap one problem for another. How about we go beyond the rooftop fantasy, Joe? Maybe push policies for bee-friendly cities, ensuring each green space and flower bed gets designed with bees in mind, like planning an intricate dance instead of hopping onto the latest trend. We need the gritty details in place for our budding bee world, or else our season finale might just leave us on a cliffhanger.
Might be controversial, Simon, but isn't a rooftop without bees like a library without books? It's chic to talk green roofs and urban hives, but you hit the bullseye. We need more than hashtags and hipsters to avoid turning our buzzing utopia into a bee Bermuda Triangle. Let's put the cool in policy. Green corridors, bee education boot camps, maybe even tax breaks for bee-friendly practices. That's the kind of plot twist our show could use.
Joe, you're definitely painting a future I'd subscribe to. So with these policy aims in mind, do Do you think there's a city out there that's leading the charge, becoming the model for others to follow in creating a real bee-friendly metropolis?
Cities like Amsterdam are nailing it, turning things around by creating pollinator pathways and banning harmful pesticides. But still a long way from solving CCD completely. Models like this pave the way for others. The whole bees first policy has to go viral for us to really get ahead of colony collapse disorder.
Well, hats off to Amsterdam, but let's not throw a ticker tape parade just yet. I mean, if all we do is copy-paste their playbook, we might miss what our own bees need. It's like expecting the bee version of Beyoncé to belt it out in every city. Ain't gonna happen. We need customized game plans. Sure, ban the nasty stuff, plant more flowers, that's beekeeping 101. But each city's got its own vibe. Portland's different than Pittsburgh, and Miami, sure as daylight savings isn't Minneapolis. We've got to get local about going global with this bee business. Let's dig into those specifics, get everyone buzzing on a hometown level. If we treat CCD with broad strokes, we risk missing the small cracks where the mites might be hiding.
That's wild, Simon. Localizing the approach to fit each city's unique situation makes total sense. It's like every place has its own bee-flavored fingerprint. One size fits all just doesn't cut it when we're dealing with diverse climates, plants, and urban designs. We've really got to lean in on that local expertise, tailor those green initiatives, boost native flowers, mix it all until every city becomes a buzzing, bespoke ecosystem. The bees deserve nothing less if we're serious about cracking this CCD puzzle.
Custom-tailored solutions are the name of the game, Joe. Each city's got its unique setup. You can't just plant palm trees in Seattle and expect the bees to throw a luau. It's about getting local botanists, ecologists, and even everyday gardeners in on the action, crowdsourcing that sweet mix of nectar sources. And hey, about those tailor-made fixes, what if we host some kind of Design Your Bee City competition? Spark a bit of community spirit and innovation, have folks come up with wild ideas that make their cities the bee's knees. Citizen scientists, kids with dandelion dreams, everyone pitching in, the wackier, the better. Let's get our buzz on one backyard at a time.
I'm all in for that competition, Simon. Talk about unleashing a hive of creativity. Design Your Bee City could really get the community's wings flapping. And honestly, who knows where the next game-changing idea'll come from? That neighbor with the wildflower obsession might just have the secret to turning CCD around. Let's keep this conversation buzzing. There's so much more to comb through in the mysterious case of vanishing bees. What's your next wild idea, folks?
Speaking of buzzing ecosystems, Joe, it's crazy cool how nature's got the best blueprints. Take ants, tiny but mighty architects. Their colonies are megastructures that might just teach us a thing or two about building our own concrete jungles. Like, imagine skyscrapers with the airflow savvy of an anthill, or traffic flow in cities mirroring those busy little insect highways. There's this whole world of biomimicry where imitation's not just flattery, it's smart city planning.
Biomimicry, sure, it sounds slick, but let's crunch some numbers. You ever tried digging like an ant in Manhattan bedrock? It's a logistical nightmare. I'll give you ventilation. We could learn a thing or two there. Energy efficiency and waste management too. But traffic flow? Good luck convincing New Yorkers to march one by one. Still, the thought of skyscrapers breathing like anthills, that's golden. Yet doesn't it feel like we're cherry-picking what works? Real integration into city design is riddled with red tape. Ever seen any actual plans, or are these just daydreams architects scribble on napkins during lunch breaks? Show me a real-world Gotham modeled after an ant mound, and then we'll have a conversation worth tunneling into.
All right, let's chew the gristle here. Biomimicry's got legs, but sure, it ain't a cure-all. However, red tape aside, these ant-inspired scribbles have turned into concrete and steel in some cases. Seriously. There's this building in Zimbabwe, the Eastgate Center. Architects took a leaf out of the termite mound playbook to keep this place cool naturally. And okay, maybe New York won't march to an ant drum on traffic, but look at Tokyo's railway system. It's uncannily aligned with how ants navigate, efficient, always adapting, and somehow gets everyone where they need to be without a 10-car pileup at Ant Central Station. So while city planning's got more layers than a lasagna, Joe, we can't just toss biomimicry out with yesterday's spaghetti water. We've got to skim off the good stuff. It's like piecing together a jigsaw, needs patience and vision. And maybe, just maybe, if we get snazzy enough with our analogies, we'll turn those daydreams into our kids' field trips.
The Eastgate Center's a neat trick, sure, but harnessing termite ingenuity for temperature control is just scratching the surface. You want to talk about real-world applications? Let's see that concept hit rush hour traffic or affordable housing crises. Think of how ants maximize space in their colonies. Why aren't our skyscrapers full of micro-apartments built upward, not out? And come on, Tokyo's rail system might be efficient, but it's no picnic during peak hours. Copying ants is dandy until you're crammed cheek to antenna with 1,000 commuters. What we need are more guinea pigs. Skyscraping labs experimenting live with these ideas. Make way for buildings that breathe, roads that flex, and communities that self-sustain. That's when biomimicry gets beyond sexy and starts getting its hands dirty. When it shapes living, breathing cities that'll stand the test of time like those ancient ant fortresses.
Oh, sure, skyscraper labs experimenting with ant colony designs. Now that'd flip the script. Imagine pitch meetings. Ladies and gents, this right here is the ant scraper, where humans hustle like insects. It's nutty, but could be the blueprint for futuristic cities buzzing with breakthroughs. Hey, if it flops, we'll just wing it on to the next wacky idea.
The ant scraper, I like that. Got a catchy ring to it. But let's break it down. Humans aren't ants. We don't take well to being stacked 8 beds high or marching in lockstep. The social blueprint doesn't translate even if the structural one has potential. People crave sunlight, not tunnel vision. So while architects are playing SimAnt, real folks need livable cities, not hives. If we go all in on ant mimicry, where's room for parks, cafes, or art galleries? Let's not sideline human experience for a science experiment. We want more than just efficiency. We want soul. Now there's your breakthrough pitch.
Whoa, hold up. Are we actually chatting about skyscrapers taking cues from anthills? That's pretty out there. But you know what? It kind of tickles my brain. Ants are these miniature engineers. Their colonies are air-conditioned fortresses without the electric bill. Imagine harnessing that natural genius for our stuffy office towers. But let's not get carried away. People need a bit more than just efficiency in their concrete jungles. We've got a hunger for daylight and lattes, too.
Tickles your brain, does it? Sure, ants are clever with their natural AC, but we're not going to ditch the HVAC system for a few dirt tunnels. Office workers worldwide would revolt if we traded up-to-date tech for ant-inspired fresh air. Seriously, though, balancing human comforts and ant efficiency is the key. We want eco-friendly without sacrificing espresso machines and ergonomic chairs. So here's the challenge. Architects need to crack this anthill code, whip up something green and grandiose without leaving us in the dark, sipping lukewarm coffee. That's where true brilliance will shine in biomimetic design. Now there's a story worth digging into. Let's get our listeners in on the mix. What do you all think? Can we find a happy medium between ant colony smarts and 5-star creature comforts?
You know, this whole ant thing reminds me of that time I backpacked across Southeast Asia. I was in this tiny village, no fancy hotels, and I stayed in this treehouse, right? It's all eco-friendly and built into nature, not bulldozing through it. So there I am, smack dab in the canopy, and it hits me. This is just like those ants. No bulldozers, no wrecking balls, just living with what you've got. The breeze was my AC, and honestly, it beat some hotel rooms I've sweated in during power outages. And let me tell ya, my morning coffee never tasted better than on that treetop perch. It's not your silver bullet solution, but it sure sparked an idea about how we could take a page from Mother Nature's book without ditching our creature comforts. It's about balance, man.
Living with what you've got. Now, there's a concept we could stand to remember. Your Southeast Asia treehouse is quaint, Simon, but come on, replicating nature's efficiency? We're talking different ball games. Ants don't worry about Wi-Fi or hot showers. Trying to scale up the unmatched efficiency of nature to fit our human needs is like fitting a square peg in a round hole. Nature's had millennia to perfect her gig. We're just playing catch-up. There's room for inspiration, sure, but replicate it. That's aiming high, maybe too high. We should pull from nature's playbook, no doubt, but let's not kid ourselves that we can match her game point for point. Now, translating those principles into human-scale designs that actually work without throwing us back to the Stone Age, that's a philosophy I can get behind. How's that for balancing, folks?
Let's not forget, though, Joe, ants don't need Wi-Fi because they're the Wi-Fi, living, breathing communication networks. If we can tap that sort of natural connectivity, who knows? Maybe the next social network won't be on our phones. It'll be the building we're in.
Ha, ants as Wi-Fi, now there's a tagline for the digital age. But while we're marveling at these insect networks, there's this deeper thread we should tug at. Nature's efficiency. It's pretty astounding when you think about it. Ant colonies have got sustainability down to an art. They use what they've got. They don't burn through resources like we do. It begs the question, can we ever realistically hope to replicate that level of efficiency? We've mastered tech and built mega metropolises, but have we gotten any closer to achieving that sort of balance with nature? We aim for sustainability in our architecture, sure, but resilience? Harmony? I'd say that's still firmly on nature's turf. What do you think out there? Can humans craft cities that genuinely vibe with the earth, or is Mother Nature just too good at her job?
Whoa, ease up on the pedals there. Replicating nature's efficiency? Have you seen us trying to start a campfire without lighter fluid? It's like watching a fish climb a tree, comical at best. Sustainability is all the rage now, but the resilience and harmony of an ant colony, that's next-level planetary finesse. Nature has this rhythm nailed down pat. No overages on her phone bill, if you know what I mean. We humans toss around green this and sustainable that, but then we blast AC with open windows. Harmony with Earth. Shh, let's figure out how to recycle properly first. But hey, I'm game to hear counterpoints. Maybe someone's got a master plan to school Mother Nature in, well, nature.
Campfires and lighter fluid. Now there's a metaphor for human ingenuity. But come on, schooling Mother Nature? We're still trying to cheat off her test sheet, and we wonder why we flunked the sustainability exams. We slap green labels on skyscrapers, but they're about as natural as plastic trees. Sure, we borrow ideas from the earth, then pat ourselves on the back for our innovation. Harmony with nature is not in our current playbook, more of an accidental fumble that we score a touchdown from if we're lucky. But what if that was the goalpost? To not just mimic nature's aesthetics, but its essence. Crack the code on truly sustainable living without compromising our lifestyles. Now that's a pipe dream I'd like to puff on. So who out there thinks they've got the brains to make harmony more than a buzzword? Let's get your 2 cents, or should I say, your 2 leaves of wisdom in this green debate.
What if ants are actually onto something? Imagine a city where every building and street effortlessly syncs with its environment. No waste, just seamless living. It's like organic meets cyberpunk.
Ants might be onto something indeed, but the gap between ant architecture and human cities is massive. Ant colonies work like a superorganism. Each individual seamlessly plays its part in a collective survival strategy. It's immaculate teamwork. Now, picture human cities using that template. Zero waste is a start. Buildings designed to self-cool, materials recycled indefinitely, and every speck of organic matter reused. It goes beyond sustainable, it's regenerative. Plus, consider this. Ants communicate with pheromones, an info superhighway without satellites or servers. Could our cities mimic such elegance? We're talking IoT sensors on steroids, data flowing as naturally as rivers, all plugged into an ecosystem rather than parasitically feeding off it. But efficiency in nature isn't just design, it's evolutionary trial and error over millennia. Folding that into fast-paced human innovation cycles is like trying to teach quantum physics in kindergarten. Still, should we strive for it? Absolutely. The goal should be not just to coexist with nature, but to complement it so tightly that the line between the natural and the built environment becomes indistinguishable. That would turn organic meets cyberpunk from a sci-fi trope into a blueprint for tomorrow.
Oh, I see where you're going. Evolutionary trial and error is nature's R&D department. But humans, we want quick fixes. Call me crazy, But isn't that urge for speed one reason we're not zen with nature yet? Fast and Furious works for Vin Diesel, not so much for green living.
Fast fixes are exactly the problem. Vin Diesel might live his life a quarter mile at a time, but you can't speedrun sustainable design. It's about the marathon, not the sprint. Nature practices patience. Evolution isn't on a deadline. Humans, we want skyscrapers up yesterday and we're surprised when they don't sync with ecosystems like an ant colony. True replication of nature's efficiency requires a mindset shift, playing the long game, embracing cycles of growth, decay, reuse, celebrating it even. Stepping off the gas pedal is step one. Rushed solutions can't capture the complex systems that took nature eons to perfect. Think longer-term investment in understanding, not just imitating, the fundamentals of natural processes. That's where true innovation lies, in the subtle dance with natural laws, not trampling them in our haste for progress. What do your experiences say, listeners? Is overnight success blinding us to nature's lessons in resilience and ultimate efficiency?
We're like microwaving a gourmet meal when nature's slow cooking a masterpiece. Instant gratuity versus epic gastronomy.
Funny you should mention microwave meals. I remember back in college, I was all about those quick fixes. Pop a frozen dinner in, 3 minutes later, chow time. Efficient? Sure. Fulfilling? Not quite. One summer, I interned at this eco farm upstate. Everything was slow grown, and we're talking real farm-to-table stuff. Meal prep took hours, sometimes days if you count growing the veggies, but let me tell you, those were some of the most flavor-packed dinners I ever had. Same goes for how we think about sustainability. In my rush for convenience, I missed out on depth and quality. Those farm feasts weren't just meals, they were nutritional symphonies honed through time and care. Kind of like what we could achieve if we took our cue from nature's methodical playbook. That taught me a valuable lesson. Some things are worth taking your time over because the outcome is just on another level. Just something to chew on as we mull over whether efficiency always equals excellence.
Nutritional symphonies and microwaves. Huh? Makes you wonder, what if we pumped the brakes on our need for speed? What earthquake-breaking cityscapes could we dream up if time wasn't ticking us down? Let's marinate on that slow-cooked food for thought. Could be the secret recipe to matching Mother Nature's magnum opus, or at least getting a step closer. So folks, what's your timeline when thinking about the scale of sustainability? A microwave minute or nature's timeless tune?
You've got something there, Simon. Slowing down to nature's pace could be just what we need for that breakthrough in sustainable design. Now, speaking of timeless tunes and nature's magnum opus, let's segue into another example of insect ingenuity, termite mounds. These feats of natural engineering are like the skyscrapers of the insect world. Their ventilation and temperature control are nothing short of architectural marvels. Plus, the termites themselves, they're like construction workers with a hive mind blueprint. No drawn-out coffee breaks or union disputes there. Human architects straining their backs over blueprints could learn a trick or two from termite temp control. And don't even get me started on the philosophical gems behind biomimicry. Termite social structure makes our corporate ladder look downright medieval. Let's dig into how these pint-sized engineers might teach us big brains about crafting cooler spaces, in both senses of the word, and creating a buzz in our work environments.
Skyscrapers of the insect world, you say? More like underground cities brimming with tiny masterminds. But let's get real. Applying termite ingenuity to human problems, are we ready for that level of commitment? These critters basically breathe through their buildings. Talk about air conditioning goals. Yet here we are, barely managing to keep our office plants alive. It's a bit rich to think we'd seamlessly adopt termite tech. Biomimicry's all the rage, but there's a monster truck-sized gap between philosophy and practice. Still, the thought of an office without the dreaded thermostat wars, that's more tempting than sneaking the last donut from a meeting. Okay, termites, show us your secrets, and maybe, just maybe, we'll stop pest control from crashing your party. So, what do you folks think? Are we buzzworthy enough to pull this off, or is it just another daydream in the colony?
Thermostat wars. Now there's a battle I know all too well. But instead of fighting over the dial, maybe we could learn to design like termites and turn our buildings into living, breathing organisms. Makes you wonder, if we can't even handle office flora, are we really ready for living walls? What do you say, folks? Could these concepts take root, or will they wither in the face of our daily grind?
Living walls does sound like stepping into a sci-fi utopia, considering we struggle to assemble furniture without tossing the instruction manual and our sanity. This ought to be good.
Ah, the ever-relatable flat-pack furniture fiasco. But think about it, if we can turn that mess into functional decor, eventually, there's hope for us yet. Insect ingenuity isn't a flat-pack solution, and there won't be any handy manuals. It's about evolving with the design, learning from mistakes, a true R&D marathon. But imagine workplaces where stale air and stiff temperatures are history because our buildings breathe like termite mounds. It's not just an office upgrade, it's a quality of life revolution. So maybe, just maybe, we're ready to take on this challenge. Learning termite-style construction could be the piece that's been missing from our human habitat puzzle. Let's put those antennas up and tune in to what these tiny critters have to offer. What do you say? Are we up to play the long game and redefine our living spaces?
Quality of life revolution, eh? Big talk for us folks who can barely keep up with tech updates on our phones. Sure, we can learn from termites, but translate that to skyscrapers and office complexes? We're talking less puzzle piece, more like reshaping the entire jigsaw. Everyone loves a revolution until it's time to charge the barricades, or in our case, ditch the AC units. I say we tackle something simpler first. Can we at least agree on where to get lunch as a team before we re-engineer society termite style? But hey, I'm all ears. Convince me we're ready to take this step without tripping over our own feet.
Well, getting the whole team on board with lunch plans is like herding cats, or in this case, coordinating termites without the pheromones to guide us. And re-engineering society? Maybe we're more suited for playing Jenga than reshaping jigsaws. But hey, if we did build like termites, maybe losing the AC remote wouldn't be a 5-alarm crisis. Now there's a utopia. Where did I put that remote? Who cares, Kevin? The building's breathing. We might not be ready to go full termite, but the day we can shrug off a lost remote is the day we know we've made it.
Exactly. Picture this. A world where Kevin's infamous remote mishaps are just a quirky anecdote rather than an office meltdown. If we can shake off that kind of heat, why not aim higher? Granted, termite-level magnificence is no walk in the park, but it's about chipping away at the old block to uncover the shiny new future underneath. We're experts at turning chaos into cathedrals, or at least functional studio apartments. In all seriousness, the ingenuity these insects flaunt could be our stepping stone. Consider how integrating their ventilation know-how could breathe new life into our static, concrete jungles. Saying bye-bye to energy-guzzling HVAC systems and hello to structures that adapt and respond. Now that's a cool breeze of fresh air worth considering. So do we keep sweating the small stuff, or do we roll up our sleeves and start learning from our six-legged friends?
Insect ventilation systems. Hold on, you're telling me these tiny architects have been sitting on HVAC gold this whole time and we're just catching up? That's wild. I mean, our best minds get stumped over energy bills, and there's Kevin freaking out over a remote while termites have it all figured out under our feet. That kind of ingenuity could shake things up from basement apartments to penthouse suites. Buildings that breathe with us, adapting in real time. Talk about a game changer. It seems ants and termites aren't just picnic crashers, they're undercover sustainability superheroes. So here's the million-dollar question. Is the future of architecture waiting in the dirt beneath our boots? Because if so, folks, it might be time to start digging. What do your instincts tell you? Are we overlooking a goldmine of innovation?
Our tiny neighbors might just be the unsung heroes in this architectural saga. It's like we've been snoozing on this gold mine of genius waiting right under our noses, or feet, rather. Who'd have guessed the future of innovation could come from the insect world? Gives the term grassroots movement a whole new meaning. So what's it going to be? Are we going to keep trudging the beaten path, or do we dare dig a little deeper into Insect Ingenuity Avenue? What secrets are hiding in the soil? Let's mull that over and see where these trails lead us next.
Well, before we carve out new paths on Insect Ingenuity Avenue, let's not forget history's back alleys. Ever hear of the Great Zimbabwe ruins? Ancient folks there might have been keen observers of termite handiwork, emulating those natural cooling designs in their own structures. It's like a time-traveled TED Talk where termites were the guest speakers on architecture. So there's our teaser. Termites, just pests or ancient professors of design? Stay tuned as we burrow into history next.
Ancient professors of design. Now that's a class I wish I could have taken. But let's pump the brakes for a second. Historians get all giddy over a pile of rocks like the Great Zimbabwe and its cooling mastery. Yet here we are with our high-tech gadgets still sweating in summer. What gives? So how come it took us so long to circle back to Termite U if the syllabus was etched in stone centuries ago? Were termites the unsung Da Vincis of their time, or what? If they were dishing out blueprints on sustainable living, seems we skipped more than a few classes. And as for ancient texts, do you really think an old termite scroll is going to pop up teaching us the ways of bug-built biocastles? Sure, we've seen ants in proverbial pants, but termites hoarding historical blueprints is a stretch, unless we're talking metaphorical scrolls stashed in soil vaults. Let's excavate this idea, though. Are these insect-inspired structures just cool stories we tell to spruce up history lessons, or can they actually guide us toward a greener future? All right, listeners, get ready for a dirt-digging session into history's burrows.
Termites and Da Vincis of their time? Not too far off, actually. In Zimbabwe, the ancient city's stone buildings used passive cooling techniques reminiscent of termite mounds. And it's not a one-off. Many cultures likely took cues from nature, call it the original biomimicry. But here's why we might have missed those classes. Sustainable building isn't flashy. It was overshadowed by the industrial age's love affair with steel and concrete. Only now, as we face climate change, do those lessons resonate louder. Regarding ancient texts or folklore, while there's no termite scrolls per se, cultural stories often celebrate termites' roles in ecosystems, symbolizing industriousness and perhaps subtly nodding to human emulation. Today's architects pore over these past marvels, realizing that sustainable isn't just trendy, it was once the norm. Hidden within these historical burrows are blueprints for harmony with our habitat. So could this ancient termitecture put us back on the sustainable path? Let's keep digging.
Isn't it ironic? We're reaching back to ancient termite wisdom to get a grip on our modern-day climate mess. Turns out, these bugs could school us in eco-friendly design while we're busy inventing new solutions. Go figure.
Right? It's like we've been doodling in the margins while termites penned the main manuscript on sustainability. Now we're playing catch-up, racing to translate termite essay into human innovations. What a plot twist.
Manuscript on Sustainability by termites? You're pulling my leg. If these little critters have been the architects of eco-living since way back, it sounds like we missed a gold mine. Just imagine flipping through history books and seeing termite mounds as the cornerstones of ancient wisdom. That's mind-boggling. It gives old school a whole new meaning. We better start taking notes. Seems like these bugs have been sitting on some serious secrets.
Absolutely, it's staggering. Consider this. The Eastgate Center in Harare, Zimbabwe, actually mimics termite mound ventilation, using far less energy than conventional buildings. This isn't fiction, it's modern architecture taking a page from old-school termite tech. Plus, termites' construction methods create microclimates within their mounds, meticulously controlling temperature and CO2 levels, all with dirt and saliva. That's natural engineering at its finest, way before air conditioning was even a dream. Now picture Mali's ancient mud brick homes in Janneh or Iran's wind-catching towers, both prime examples of ancestral know-how rooted in natural climate control. Turns out, green building isn't just a badge for today's LEED certifications. It's the cornerstone of a legacy that bugs built. So are we finally ready to crawl through history's burrows and come out wiser on the other side? Let's take that lesson plan from our tiny tutors and craft a future that might just be as sustainable as it is savvy.
Let's press pause on the nature-loving parade for just a second. We're applauding insect tech, But our ancestors weren't exactly handing out certificates for termite-inspired design. And mud brick homes and wind towers are cool and all, but they didn't stop us from churning out smog factories on the daily. So why did we ditch the bug blueprints? Maybe because back then, bolstering structures with steel seemed like winning the lottery, while building like a bug felt like, well, living in the dirt. The introspection is a hoot, though. It's like finding out your weird uncle has been a genius this whole time, and you only noticed because you finally stopped to chat at a family reunion. Sure, we're getting wise to this now, but let's not pat ourselves on the back too hard. We've been skipping biology class big time. Are we genuinely ready to enroll in Termite Tech 101, or are we still flirting with steel skyscrapers and fossil fuels? Only time will tell, I guess.
Well, we might snub dirt as low-tech, but embracing our weird uncle's genius could lead us to living in self-cooling homes taller than a termite's wildest dreams. Watch out, steel. It's the little guy's turn to shine.
We might snub dirt as low-tech, but embracing our weird uncle's genius, that's the termites and their earthy craft, could propel us to construct self-cooling skyscrapers that make steel behemoths look like relics. Imagine towering structures where the AC isn't bleeding your wallet dry, all thanks to termite engineering marvels distilled into human know-how. That'd be the ultimate hat tip to history's tiny titans of construction, a modern skyscape with a soul rooted deep in the ancient savanna. So yeah, watch out, steel and glass. The little guys indeed could turn the tide.
Whoa, that's trippy. Imagine cracking open the formula to termite mounds. Plopping that into our steel and glass jungles could flip the whole script. It's wild.
Dreaming big, aren't we? But get this. The great enclosure at the ancient city of Great Zimbabwe had conical towers remarkably similar to termite mounds, and research suggests they weren't just for good looks. They tapped into natural cooling, just like the termite tech we're wowed by today. Now zoom over to Mali's Djenné with its adobe architecture, still standing tall after centuries. These structures use thermal mass to stay cool during the day and release heat at night, another nod to our six-legged friends' design principles. Or consider Iran's wind towers. We're talking about natural air conditioning engineered centuries ago, a testament to human ingenuity intertwining with nods to nature. So here's the script flipped right back at you. Termites have been unintentional eco-gurus since forever. We're just catching up, repurposing their designs into our modern constructs, essay style. Think of when you copy homework but tweak it enough not to get caught. That's us humble bragging sustainability while termites roll their eyes underground. Feels like it's time to give proper props where they're due, huh?
It's fascinating. We're stumbling on ancient masterclasses in termite technology. While we're busy drafting blueprints for sustainable living, it could be said we're just sketching shadows of history's genius. Makes you wonder what other lessons are sitting right beneath our feet, doesn't it? Let's keep our ears to the ground and our minds open. Who knows what historical whispers might guide tomorrow's innovations? What do you think, Simon?
With all this termite talk, it's easy to see them as these mini master builders, the unsung heroes of sustainable architecture. But let me flip the script. Termites can be downright hilarious when you think about it. Imagine a termite, donning a little hard hat, giving us humans a guided tour of its mound. Ladies and gents, behold the grand hallway, twice the length of your pinky finger. And then there's the termite queen, basically living her best life being weighted on hand and foot, not lifting a single limb. If that's not life goals, I don't know what is. So while we've got to give credit where it's due for their architectural brilliance, let's not forget how entertaining these tiny critters can actually be when we take a closer look at their day-to-day shenanigans.
Oh, absolutely. Picture this. A termite with a swagger rolling up to its mates like, "You see this mound? I built it using nothing but soil and spit. Top that, human architects." The termite stand-up scene must be buzzing with jokes about how they're the real foundation of high-rise living. And get this, Simon, termites communicate by headbanging. Could you imagine if our contractors did that on site? Miscommunication would lead to a whole new genre of construction comedy.
Ha ha ha! That's gold! Termites throwing down a headbang to chat. Much more rock and roll than our texting. Human builders dropping beats instead of blueprints? Now that's a renovation reality show I'd binge.
So I've got a buddy who's a contractor, right? One day, he's out surveying this old house, real fixer-upper, with floors worn down to the bones. Suddenly, he breaks through the wooden floor. He finds himself knee-deep in a sea of termites. Now, instead of panicking, he laughs and says, "Guess you guys wanted an open floor plan, huh?" Turns out these termites were nature's little demolition crew. It was so absurd, it cracked him up amidst the chaos. Inspired by their work, he incorporated a unique design into the rebuild that echoed the natural, haphazard beauty crafted by his tiny comrades. Ever since, he jokes about hiring them for his next gig.
Well, termites gutting a house is low-key hilarious in a sitcom, but in real life? Yikes. Contractors like your buddy laughing it off? That's one way to handle it. But let's not forget homeowners might not see the joke. From their angle, it's a horror show, with these critters chowing down on life savings. Him using that wreckage as inspo for a new design? Genius, turning termite tragedy into artistic triumph. Not everyone would bounce back and see potential in pest pandemonium. But, just between us, termite demolition isn't a service you'd want to market. Drawing the line between accidental art and actual pests is crucial unless you're vying for the most unique contractor award.
Absolutely, for homeowners, it's like watching a buffet where their house is the main course. Still, there's something comically surreal about pests-inspiring architecture. Imagine an infomercial. Tired of conventional building materials? Let termites show you the wonders of wood pulp design. You could even picture a termite impersonating an architect, tiny blueprints and all, pushing the boundaries of avant-garde living spaces. It's that fine line between disaster and innovation that can sometimes spark the most brilliant ideas. Though I gotta say, accidental art should probably stay out of the real estate listings.
Haha, wood pulp design. Now that's eco-friendly to the extreme. But tell me, do you think your contractor buddy ever seriously considered any termite-inspired ideas for his gigs, or was it all just a good-natured chuckle at the chaos?
Knowing him, he relished the chuckle, but I wouldn't put it past him to sneak in some termite-inspired innovation. As for our miniature demolition experts, they've got more to teach us about accidental artistry and efficiency. Ever had any pest encounters turn into inspiration, Simon?
Well, when we're talking about pests turning into our muses, there's actually a serious side to this whole termite inspiration thing. It might sound odd at first, but these little critters have sparked some pretty mind-blowing advances in green building materials. Like, picture bricks that basically sweat to keep your house cool, no AC needed. Now, isn't that something?
Yeah, Simon, it's fascinating how we're seeing innovations like these self-cooling bricks that mimic the natural ventilation of termite mounds. This bio-inspired tech is revolutionizing eco-construction by reducing energy needs for cooling. It's not just about being fancy with new materials. It's this whole shift towards living more harmoniously with our environment. Another wild example. Consider researchers developing concrete that can heal its own cracks using bacteria, sort of like termites maintaining their mounds. With the urgency of climate change, incorporating biology into design isn't just cool, it's becoming a moral imperative to reduce our carbon footprint and move towards sustainable living. Plus, cities are growing, space is tight, heat is up. Termite wisdom could steer us towards smarter, adaptable urban habitats lighter on the planet. Can you picture a sleek, sprawling skyline modeled after those intricate colonies? That's colony constructivism. Urban planning meets the eco-efficiency of the insect world. How do you imagine these future metropolises might look, Simon?
Well, listen up, Joe. Modern cities as termite mounds sounds slick in theory, but let's ground it for a sec. Those self-cooling bricks, they've got to stack up against good old concrete, not just in the lab, but out in the real gritty world of construction. And they need to be tough enough to handle whatever nature throws at them, not just on sunny days. And before we even think about turning our cities into bug-inspired utopias, there's a heap of stuff to sort out. Like, how are these materials going to hold up over time? Can you really expect a crack-fixing concrete to mend everything from earthquakes to wear and tear from heavy traffic? Don't get me wrong, I like where this is headed, big picture-wise. But before we start plastering termite tech all over the place, let's make sure it's not just solving one problem while creating another, a bit like slapping on a Band-Aid when you actually might need surgery. Now that'd be an urban challenge, right? Termite tech is nifty, but let's test drive it thoroughly before we go full throttle.
Sure, the proof is in the pudding, or in this case, the brickwork. But imagine a city where buildings self-repair and energy grids are alive, literally running on living tech. The potential is massive if we get it right. That's a wild future to think about, don't you say?
Well, brace yourself for mindbender time. If we get to that sci-fi cityscape, the phrase concrete jungle might not just be a metaphor anymore. We'll be living in a biological symphony where our streets are alive and we're just guests at Mother Nature's grand performance.
That's some high-concept living right there. But let's not forget, in any symphony, each instrument's got to play in harmony. We're only guests if we don't mess with the conductor, nature. Don't you think in our haste to innovate, we risk cranking up the volume too loud and drowning out the original composition? This biological symphony needs rules, guidelines to ensure we keep to nature's tune and rhythm. It's about balance, conserving as we construct. Without a plan, those sci-fi cityscapes could just become chaos-capes, plagued by unexpected side effects of tampering too much with biological systems. And then no amount of self-repairing concrete can fix that mess. What do you reckon, Simon?
Absolutely, mate. Rushing headlong like a bull in a china shop into this biotech future could leave us with more cracks than that self-healing concrete can fix. Balance is key. We have to evolve our cities without tipping the scales too much against nature's rhythm. Picture a city planning meeting where instead of just talking traffic flows and zoning laws, we're discussing how buildings breathe and communicate like a termite colony. The ambition is there, but so are dilemmas around messing with ecosystems or creating tech that might go rogue. So, conservation has to be the heartbeat of this progress. It isn't enough to slap biology onto blueprints. We've got to ensure we're enhancing the dance of the natural world rather than stepping on its toes. That's colony constructivism with a side of caution, making cities smarter, not harder.
Spot on with the need for caution, Simon. In line with that, how do you think we ensure these bio-inspired innovations are sufficiently vetted to complement existing ecosystems before they're rolled out on a large scale?
All right, diving deeper into the termite marvel, let's unpack those mounds a bit. These structures are engineering masterpieces. Termite mounds are built to control temperature and gas exchange, vital for their survival in harsh climates. The design is so effective that skyscrapers like the Eastgate Center in Zimbabwe have actually drawn inspiration from it, dramatically cutting energy use for climate control. But when we dream up our future cities with this sort of bio-inspiration, there's a lot at play. We got to start with rigorous testing, for example, lab studies paired with small-scale real-world trials. It should be a collaboration across the board, ecologists, urban planners, architects, even sociologists, because hey, human behavior is part of that ecosystem. Then there's public buy-in. These innovations need to be not only technologically sound, but also appealing to those who inhabit these spaces. If a building sweats or a wall heals, people need to understand and embrace these features. Otherwise, builders will just stick to what they know, even if it guzzles more power than a thirsty camel in the desert. Applied carefully, strategies like colony constructivism can potentially lead to sustainable urbanization that adapts to environmental needs, reduces carbon footprints, and even cuts down on construction costs over the long run. Big ambitions, but it comes down to thoughtful step-by-step implementation.
Now imagine streetlights that work like fireflies, adapting their brightness to the needs of the neighborhood. Taking a page from nature might just turn our city grids into wondrous light shows.
Streetlights like fireflies. Now that's a light bulb moment. But let's hit the brakes there. What if these bio-borrowed lights start flickering more than a dodgy disco? Sure, they're pretty and could save a ton of energy, but think about the folks just wanting to get home without feeling like they're in a rave. Before we go all in on bug-powered bulbs, we gotta ask, Are we ready for nature's unpredictability in our everyday lives? It sounds great on paper, but this isn't Wonderland. It's West 5th Street during rush hour. We can't have the infrastructure blinking out because it's not mating season. It's vital to strike that balance between eco dreams and practical, reliable city living. Because when push comes to shove, people might prefer a simple switch over waiting for Larry the Lightbug to decide it's time to shine.
Right on, Simon. Eco-dreamy streetlights need to ace their night job first, lighting our way, not throwing surprise raves.
You know, this whole eco-dreamy tech talk reminds me of my great-aunt Mabel's garden. She had these solar-powered lights shaped like little butterflies, cute as heck. Now her intention? To scare off pests while giving us a fairy tale path to follow. What happened instead was a comedy of errors. Half the lights wouldn't turn on, the others flickered like they were sending Morse code, and those pests? They adored their new flashy hangout. Let's just say Aunt Mabel's eco-friendly ambition turned into an all-you-can-eat buffet for bugs with VIP disco included. It goes to show that even with the best intentions, getting Mother Nature to cooperate with our grand plans, let's just call it a work in progress.
Oh, Aunt Mabel's garden sounds like an insect rave. Flex those green thumbs with caution. All right, folks, it's been a hoot diving into the world of bio-inspired designs with you all. Thanks for tuning in to Infinite Podcast, where we harvest ideas wilder than Aunt Mabel's garden. Remember to catch us again tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern for another round of ecological escapades and technology tangents. Until then, keep your lights steady and your eco dreams grounded. Over and out.